WorkPlace RFQ helps you submit and manage requests for quotes to multiple vendors. Once requisitions have been fully approved, they can be loaded into an RFQ session. To work with RFQ pending requisitions, the reviewer can select the RFQ pending requisitions on the dashboard and they will be directed to a load screen. By entering filters into the initial load options, users can limit items brought into the request for quote session. If you leave the load screen blank, it'll bring up everything within that RFQ. If I expand that RFQ, I then can have 3 steps in processing that RFQ. The RFQ session. Items to be quoted are selected. Multiple items can be sent to multiple vendors through the same session, or lines can be handled individually. In our scenario today, I will be sending one item to a vendor for a quote. The line is assigned by clicking on the checkbox next to the line. This now selects that line for RFQ. You then assign the vendors for this item by choosing Assign Vendors button at the header. When I access the Assign Vendors button, it gives me a listing of the available RFQ vendors from within Paramount WorkPlace. I'm going to choose 2 RFQ vendors and choose to save. To then send the RFQs to that vendor, I come back to the header and click on Submit to Vendors. When I submit to vendors, it does show me the generated RFQs that have been created, 6675 and 6676. Vendors can receive a request for quote via email. They can then complete, submit, and revise their quote using a web browser. Or the other option is to use our WorkPlace vendor portal. Before we log into the vendor portal, within WorkPlace, I can see that that RFQ has been submitted to 2 vendors and it has not been responded or replied to by any vendor. We're now going to go out to our dashboard that would show the RFQ. Vendors can go ahead and log in and be able to see the RFQ that's assigned to you. I can see the RFQ 6676. I can easily click on that RFQ, which would take me into that information, and upon accessing the RFQ, the vendor then can enter the information for the quote, including an attachment. You can browse out, find any attachment that you would like. We'll go ahead and attach a quote today, and then I can finish entering the information onto that RFQ session, put in the vendor item number, the date promised, as well as that vendor pricing. If there are any additional comments, I could add them at this point as well. And from here, I will go ahead and save. Upon saving, I then have the ability to see that the vendor deadline has been met. And then our next step would be able to go in and verify that information from within WorkPlace. Within WorkPlace, you have the ability then to go ahead and see if that RFQ has been responded to. When I come back into WorkPlace, I'm going to log back in as my user. And when I log back in my user, I can see that that RFQ was submitted to 2 vendors and replied by 1 vendor. Right from my outstanding transactions, I can click on that, take me directly into that RFQ session where I can expand that line. From here, if I go to my RFQ tab, I can see the vendors have replied or not replied. In this scenario, we can see Advanced Office Systems did reply with the item, the date promised, as well as the dollar amount. I could view any attachments as well as look at the comments. At this point, you can make the determination as to which vendor you're going to award that actual requisition line item to. We'll go ahead and click on the Advanced Office Systems. When I choose the award, it automatically updates the information underneath the General tab. The next step would be to go ahead and choose to process this line, which will then either send it back for review or a purchase order can be created.